Commander, our forces have discovered a ammunition dump of our enemy, the YouTube Shadow Banning Unit Army. So this ammo dump contains trillions of dollars of ammunition. I need you to take it out. The future of our victory depends on you, Commander. Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 172 to 173 for the 14th to the 15th of August. And the last summary, right, I put the new intro video, and then right, you guys, no one commented about it. I'm so sad. So anyway, so just now you can scroll back and look again the new intro, which is only for Ukraine war, because all the footages is from the Ukraine war. So just something, you know, extra to do, you know, to make it nicer. So anyway, let's start off with missile strikes. So the Russians have returned to striking a traction power substation. So basically the train system, if I'm not mistaken, are actually powered by electricity, pretty much like, you know, our subways in New York or in Singapore and Hong Kong. So the Russian forces actually launched missile strike on the Synelnykove traction power substation, which is this thingy here. And there's another one at the Apostolove is here. So this is, as you can see, it is here. You can see, and probably this one also as well. So this has been a long time, I think, since the last time the Russia struck any of these railway traction power substations. I think probably at least 1 month or more. So maybe the railway is starting to work very well again for the Ukrainians, and it's starting to become a threat to the Russian war effort, and which is why they are now starting to strike certain railway targets again. And so that's something interesting. So let's see whether they will continue to strike more of such targets. And let's see. So and on the 15th of August, 2 days ago, Russia Ministry of Defense also announced that they had struck a foreign mercenary, or basically a foreign legion deployment point. This a temporary deployment point. So to me, a temporary deployment point is still a deployment point. So the temporary is really much redundant. So reportedly, 100 soldiers from or mercenaries from Poland and Germany were killed. Over 50 were wounded. So 150 casualties from this strike. Not sure if this is true. They is widely circulated of this video of this alleged strike. However, according to Ryba, they say that the video is not this strike. They say that the Russian Ministry of Defense actually used a different footage as a representative on this strike. They geolocated the video to be actually in Zaporizhzhia. So it's a missile strike in Zaporizhzhia Oblast. It's actually not this strike on this foreign legion deployment point in Zolochiv Kharkiv region. It's not. So if you see, so I did not fact check this because I don't feel it's very important to geolocate it. However, if you do, I believe you will be probably seeing this in pro-Russian sources or Twitter accounts sharing on, you know, the missile strike on the foreign legion deployment point reportedly, which is look like a missile striking a warehouse looking thingy, but that is definitely not the one, because if you look at the video, it's full of you know, artillery holes all around the building. So I don't think Zolochiv is the kind of location where it's actually bombarded by so much artillery. So that's also my kind of take lah. The thing that I don't think is true. I think Ryba made a good point. So anyway, yeah, that's just that. Moving on to, let's go on to the southern front. So at Mykolaiv, let's see if this is okay. This is outdated, but my understanding is that the Ukrainians are still trying to strike Novomykhailivka. So at the Mykolaiv front, there is report of fighting at Novohryhorivka. Let me remove this. At Novohryhorivka. So reportedly this attack coming from the direction of Zalizne High. And so this is reported by the Ukraine Defense Ministry. They said that the Russians are trying to improve their tactical positions by an assault operation in the direction of Zalizne High, Novohryhorivka. So basically this way up. And they say that the Russians did not succeed in their operation. And this is very interesting because Zalizne High and between Zalizne High and Novohryhorivka, there is actually Ternovi Podi. So not sure what is this supposed to be. According to my mapping, I mapped this as under Russian control. Lyubo-Marivka is actually not mapped to be under Russian control by Ryba. I put it because of the Russian MOD mapping. So you can take this with a pinch of salt, but it does make sense because why attack this location when you can attack this location? No idea. So and then the fighting at Shiroke was not reported anymore. This is from the 13th of August, which is already 3 days ago. We will actually keep a lookout and see, if this will continue for maybe for another 1 or 2 summaries, and then we will probably delete it later. So otherwise, yeah, this is the Mykolaiv front. Only this fighting here. And moving on to the Deputy Breed front, the fighting at Luzove also have no conclusion. We have no idea what's the situation after this fighting, after the report by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. So no reported ground offensive here, nor in the Kryvyi front. So that's all from the southern front. Moving on to the Zaporizhzhia line. At Zaporizhzhia, the Enerhodar continues to be shelled. And from my take, from the DPA's position, this shelling is actually done by the Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians continue to target the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And this from the 14th to the 15th, the shelling is reported. And as you can see in the latest report from Ryba, they said that the blow hits the right bank of the Kakhovka reservoir, and then they also say based on unconfirmed information, missiles and shells fell in the area of the power unit number 6. So things are not looking very good at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. It's not a good thing that this nuclear power plant is being shelled. The reason why is not the Russians self-shelled their own position is that the Russians, as you can see, dominated and conquered a huge territory in Kherson and Zaporizhzhia. This entire region needs power, and most of this region depends on only 2 major power plants. One is the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant at Enerhodar. The other one is the Novomykhailivka hydroelectric power station, which is this one. So this Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant. So this is the one. So the electricity situation depends largely on these 2, and both sides are actually bombarded by the Ukrainians. As I have reported previously, the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant is down to only 50% capacity due to the shelling by HIMARS. And so I was asking, why is there a relation based on the previous summary. I actually got information from Franz Leubenberg, he emailed me to tell me the reasoning. He said that a nuclear power plant always need diesel generators or power from another power plant when shutting down all the reactors. So this is needed to power the pumps that cools the reactor. So considering what happened at Fukushima in Japan after the tsunami, the outside power lines were damaged. So the fuel tanks of the generator were above ground and were swept away by the tsunami. So as such, the generators ran for a few hours on the small day tanks and then stopped, and caused the reactors to overheat and cause contamination to the entire region. So, which means that in the event that the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is disabled due to the shelling by the Ukrainians, they actually still need the Novohryhorivka area, the Kharkiv hydroelectric power plant, to actually supply priority power to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to continue to pump water from this reservoir here into the cooling tank. And if they are unable to do it, we're going to have a Chernobyl number 2. So this is not a good situation, and the Ukrainians continue to use this as a propaganda tool to misinform the world, saying that it's the Russians that's doing this, shelling their own position to add more bargaining trips to their negotiation with the Europeans or to the world, to use this to blackmail the world or the Europeans into agreeing to what the Russians want. This makes no sense, because firstly, the Russians never did use this issue to tell the Europeans to do anything. The Russians only say that the Ukrainians are shelling this power plant, and as a result, this might cause a catastrophe. The Russians, however, did not use this situation to demand anything. However, on the Ukrainian side, that I can't say the same, because the Ukrainians are saying that the Russians are shelling this position, and they demand the international community to demand or force the Russians to retreat away from Enerhodar, to demilitarize themselves away from this region. And so who is making the demands? Then you'll probably find out who is actually the ones making the attack. So to me, it is undoubtedly no. There's no world where the Russians will be shelling a nuclear power plant that they need. You must first understand the amount of destruction in this entire war so far. The Russians are struggling, actually literally struggling, to keep the economy intact, and they are trying very hard, and they actually do not have enough money and resources to do the repairing and the reconstruction. Even in Mariupol, they are reconstructing some housing, but it's barely enough for the number of people that's not having a shelter. And so the last thing they need is actually to have electrical power problems, and which will be an additional problem they need to solve as winter is approaching. Winter is coming, and it's going to be very cold. And should this power plant fail, then the entire region here, not just Russian controlled but also Ukrainian controlled territory, will have no power. The current power plant actually provides power over to Zaporizhzhia as well, and I think the entire region around here. So it is not a small issue. The Russians will not do something like that to sabotage themselves. Everything that they destroyed, they need to repair, because the Russians are keen to keep Zaporizhzhia, Kherson region. So if they're going to keep this region, they need the power plant intact. Building a power plant is very, very expensive, and they are under sanctions. They do not have a lot of access to many things that they might need to build a modern power plant, especially a nuclear one. Especially the nuclear catastrophe will render most of this land inhabitable, and then it will make it it will reduce the economic effectiveness of this region as well. It is a stupid thing to do should the Russians be actually shelling their own place. So I don't think that is true. But for the Ukrainians, they are fighting a different war. For the Russians, this is just a special military operation. But for the Ukrainians, this is a war of liberation. This is a total war situation. They are putting 100% of their abilities and their capacities to fight against the Russians. So they are willing to do anything to achieve victory. And shelling a nuclear power plant is just a very small steps versus all the things that they have already done. So so that's all for Odnohorivka. There is no other fighting reported in these three points of the Zaporizhzhia line: Pervomaiske, Zolochiv, and Vuhledar. However, we do have action over here at the Vershyna Novohryhorivka region. Previously, I reported the fighting at Novohryhorivka. We have not hear anything about it anymore. There is, however, fighting reported at Vremivka. This is already the second time we have heard this from the Ukraine Defense Ministry, which makes me believe that Vremivka is currently under Ukrainian control, which is why I awarded the flag and moved the front line to reflect this change, which means that the Ukrainians have recaptured Vremivka somewhere before the 9th of August. And the Russians attacking Vremivka might be actually a result of a counter-offensive to try to retake this position they have lost to the Ukrainian side. So this is a new capture for the Ukrainians. And so that's all from the Zaporizhzhia Line. And moving on to the Donetsk Front. In the Donetsk Front, a lot of actions. The latest information was that there is a Russian Ka-52 attack helicopter that was shot down over the Donetsk region, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. They did not specify where. So they say that it was shot down by anti-aircraft missiles. So they say this is the third Ka-52 shot down by the Defense Force within 2 days. However, I do not know where is the other two that was shot down. I don't think I reported that. Or maybe I reported one. No, I'm not sure. I don't remember, I never see this information about it, the shooting the first and the second one. So then from Ryba, the pro-Russian source, we actually had more information. So according to Ryba, they gave us the direction, the location, which is actually near Vuhledar. So armed forces of Ukraine shot down a Russian Ka-52 with a manpad. So we actually have a lot more information just in this one sentence from Ryba. So what happened is that this Ka-52 was actually performing fire support mission for the ground forces, who were able to break through some of these Ukrainian defenses, attacking in the direction towards Vuhledar. And then after that, it was hit by two anti-aircraft missiles, manpads. The helicopter destroyed two fortified positions before it got shot down. So the helicopter did not crash. They made an emergency landing, and then the pilot and the navigator is evacuated. So the pilot and navigator is safe. However, the helicopters did not also crash. They simply, if you see the video, it was smoking very badly, so they did an emergency landing in Russian controlled territory, and then they saved the pilot and the navigator. However, this information also give us information that there is fighting towards Vuhledar, or at least near Vuhledar. There is also fighting reported near Pavlivka. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they said that the offensive battle is in the direction of Pavlivka. So there is a lot of action here. Probably the attack is all coming from Mykolaiv. So one direction towards Vuhledar, one towards Pavlivka in a wide offense frontal assault towards these two positions, which actually reinforced the mapping that Mykolaiv is actually under Russian control. So as such, based on war mappers listing Mykolaiv as a Ukrainian control, I will actually delete this because I don't think this is accurate, and we're going to move this front line accordingly to this new reality. So which is like this, which actually makes a bit more sense. So let's do this, and then yeah, so let's look more correct now. There's fighting reported at Preschystivka. So according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, there was actually a recon by combat in this area, and then they retreated after getting fired upon. So there's some battles around here. So the Russians, while attacking this side, they're actually probing at the Preschystivka region. So maybe they're trying to do an encirclement, attacking from the rear while the main offense is coming on this direction. Maybe that's what's happening. Over on the east side, northeast to this main fighting ground, there is a fighting towards Novomykhailivka from Zolochiv. So this is reported by the Ukraine Defense Ministry. they say that there is a offensive assault operation in the direction of Zolochiv to Novomykhailivka, and they say that there's actually partial success for the Russian side. So the fighting actually is continuing. This is the latest report from today. So this is another offensive. As you can see, this is a wide front, and not to mention that we also have reports of fighting previously at Marinka. There was mention of breakthroughs, but we still do not know what is the actual status now. Had the Russians actually conquered Marinka, or maybe not? So not too sure about this situation. Moving up north of Marinka, we have a renewed offensive towards Nevelske. So Nevelske is actually this small little town here, which if you are zoom out, you actually don't see the name. You have to zoom in to see it. So the fighting come from Staromykhailivka, which is actually here. So this direction up north. And previously we have reported the Russians have tried to attack here, but then they abandoned the attack after the first attempt had failed. So now we actually see this fighting again, and the Ukrainians actually wrote that the fighting continues, which means the fighting is still ongoing over at the Nevelske direction. At the Pisky region, which is actually in the northwest of Donetsk city, fighting continues in the area of Pisky. So while the Russians have conquered Pisky region, the Ukrainians are still fighting in the region. They're still around Pisky, and they are continuous report from 15 to 16 from yesterday to today that they are fighting around this area. According to Ryba, which give more information, they say that there is a fortified area in the junction of the ring road near Pisky. So I believe it's actually around here, which is probably this entrenchment here. Maybe by now this is a much bigger and more well done fortified position around here. So probably this is the junction that they are talking about towards Vremivka. There's also fighting continue towards Pervomaiske. This is according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, in the direction of Pervomaiske. This, however, is not reported by Ryba. This is only reported by the Ukraine Defense Ministry. So, yep. Moving on to Avdiivka, we have no more updates on Avdiivka. So maybe the offensive towards Avdiivka, currently there's a pause. They are not attacking anymore. The last report is on the 13th. This is 12. This is 13. The last report is on the 13th, which is the form reported in the previous summary. So there's no more report on the fighting at Avdiivka. Maybe they're resting now, and there's fighting towards Krasnohorivka from Novobakhmutivka, and then there's also the fighting towards Alexandropil, which is both reported in the previous summary. I did not have any new information about them. Moving on to Horivka region, there is new assault developed towards Zalizne. So according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, there is enemy offensive assault direction. In the direction of Horivka Iron is actually Zalizne. Fighting continues, which means that there is actually a offensive operation from Horivka direction towards Zalizne. So this is a totally new thing. We haven't seen combat over here at the New York Torres direction, this area here. So this is a new offensive that we haven't seen before. And then that's it from the Donetsk Front, and we are moving into the Bakhmut Front. So this is Bakhmut city. So this area here is Bakhmut Front. At the Bakhmut Front, there is no more information about Zalizne. Maybe they have conquered it, maybe. There's no information about Dacha. So these two regions are very quiet now. From the 11th to the 12th, we didn't really see any information about that. However, we do have information of fighting at Kodema. So based on the 15th of August, which is yesterday's report from Ukrainian Defense Ministry, there is actually fighting at Kodema. And there is also fighting at Zalizne reported. The last reported was on the 14th of August. And of significance is the capture of Vershyna by the Wagner private military contractors from the Russian side. So they say that they have, after weeks of fighting here, they finally conquered Vershyna, and they're actually moving to the eastern outskirts of Zalizne. So if you have watched the quick update on the Vershyna's capture, you probably know this by now. There's also fighting at Vesela Dolina, previously reported on the 12th. We haven't seen any new information about this very out of the norm or out of line kind of fighting, because we do not know where this fighting started from. Very out of character or out of the tide of war. So this information was from Interslava, which is a much lesser much less credible source than Rival, because Interslava is actually an aggregator of information from other Telegram channels, and then they translate everything into English from Russian channels. So this information is likely to be wrong, from my opinion. So fight at Bakhmut city. The fighting continues at Bakhmut. However, we have no more information. The information is still the same. The fighting was in this industrial area here and on the outskirts of the residential area. Otherwise, we don't really have much information about this situation over here at Bakhmut. I do have some information that the Ukrainians have been blowing up certain bridges. I cannot tell which bridge was destroyed, because they said there was a bridge destroyed in the northern side. There seems to be quite a number of bridges here, from road bridge to train bridge to human bridge, to Stanford Bridge, and so not sure. So I cannot indicate this cross. I only know this one was blown up. So when I have more information, I'll let you know by the map and reports in the summary. Moving on to Bakhmutske. There is fighting at Bakhmutske based on the latest information in the direction of Pervomaiske to Bakhmutske. So the fighting at Bakhmutske coming from Pervomaiske, moving northwestward, and the Russians have controlled the Kharkiv gypsum plant, as well as the gypsum quarry. They are supposedly still fighting for the city of or the town or city or whatever. I'd like to think this is a city or Soledar. And according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, they actually mentioned multiple times that Soledar is actually under attack. So you can see very consistent. They continue to report. Moving on to Yakovlivka, the last information of fighting is on the 13th. We haven't have new information about Yakovlivka so far. Moving further to this area, no information about Bilohorivka or Nahene. So I went to look at the live UA map. Live UA map maps Bilohorivka and Nahene under Ukrainian control. So no idea. So there is no further information about Vremivka, and there is actually fighting reported at Sperne on the 14th, which is 2 days ago, and there is fighting reported on the 14th and on today, which is basically probably a continuation of these few days of continued fighting. The funny thing is the Lysychansk oil refinery have went independent, and they are now conducting an offensive in the direction of Ivano-Darivka. So maybe we're gonna see a new republic of Lysychansk oil refinery very soon. And so otherwise we are already in Siversk front. So this area is Siversk front. Verkhono-Kamyanske, we don't have information, nor Novohryhorivka. I can actually delete the Novohryhorivka one, which means the offensive have not worked out. This is still on the 12th, right? So 12, we'll keep one more day. We'll just keep one more summary. And there is fighting, however, reported on Serebrenka. It was actually made by a combat by reconnaissance in the Serebrenka region. And then after they were hit, and then they ran away. This is reported on the 14th of August. So again, the Russians did not have Novohryhorivka, but they are able to attack Serebrenka, which means that this central region, which was previously, we mentioned that we reported maybe a week or two ago that the Russians were trying to capture this high ground, but they failed. So there's a good chance to believe that this area is actually under Russian control. I think for good measure, let's indicate this into the map. in this way. So no, I think this makes some sense. Yeah. So we have this this tail, this finger, digging the nose at Serebrenka, it's like so itchy, like dig. This pimple don't want to come out. Yeah. So that's all from the Sivas front. Moving on to the Izium front. This is Izium city. This entire area, I name it the Izium front. What do I have? We have fighting reported at Dolina. So I have moved the front line to before Dolina and Krasnohorivka. Previously, it was all the way to the north of Vremivka. Because of the way how the Russian Ministry of Defense do their mapping, I concluded that that mapping is very very liberal, to put it that way. So I have actually pushed back to make it look more sensible. And now the fighting is at Dolina. The stronghold of Dolina and Krasnohorivka continues to hold against the Russian forces. The fighting at Novohryhorivka is no longer reported. There's maybe the offensive has failed, but anyway, the reported was the defense was being challenged. So maybe the Russians give up. They're gonna go back to bombardment again. Because if you haven't heard this before, I have mentioned before that the Russian tactic nowadays is actually just to use artillery. Very much like the YouTube game that I put in the channel, where we have the Kingdom of Popasna appearing. Yeah, in that game, you can see people always vote artillery. It's the same thing in this real war. What the Russians do is that they will just use artillery to bombard the defensive position so badly until that the Ukrainian defenders will have to retreat, or they all die out, and the Russians will actually probe. They will send the reconnaissance to move upward to probe to see whether the enemy is still there. If the enemy is still there and they fire back, they'll retreat, which is much like this. They have no success, and so they retreat. They will resume the bombardment again. Bombardment, airstrikes, missile strikes, whatever. So they will continue to do this thing on repetition until they break the will of the defenders to actually keep the position. So that's the Russian tactic now. The idea is to save life. They do not want to have unnecessary Russian soldier death. I think the political cost of having dead Russian soldiers are quite high nowadays. So it's not like the World War II times under the Stalin. I think the value of life nowadays are a lot higher for the Russians. So they are trying to minimize the number of deaths in military operation. Especially this is not a war for them. This is just a special military operation. They're just doing their best to keep them alive. Moving on to the Bakhmut front, the fighting at Uhledar has no more. It's no longer reported. The last report is on the 10th, so I will delete it. It's no longer happening now. Looks like the defenses at Uhledar had held against the Russian forces. Moving on to the Kharkiv front. At the Kharkiv front, we have reports that the Russian forces have captured Borshchova. So, according to Intel Slava, they mentioned that after the capture of another town, which I'm going to talk about in a while, this is the capture of Borshchova is the most significant advance in the outskirts of Kharkiv. So this leads to the conclusion that Borshchova is actually captured, which now is reflected. The sentence before this sentence is actually the capture of Udi. So the Russian Ministry of Defense, in a very unusual stance, they actually reported the capture of Udi in the very first sentence of their report, saying that as a result of Russian armed forces offensive action, Udi is completely liberated, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. So this is very out of character, because usually Russian Ministry of Defense only reports the capture of very big cities or very major positions, like Severodonetsk, Lysychansk. I believe that if they captured Bakhmut, they will mention Bakhmut. So like Pisky is a very significant position for the Donetsk people. which is why they reported that. So, you know, the capture of Woody is very out of character. So, it might suggest, so when I do the quick update, I say that it might suggest a wider operation in the Kharkiv region, maybe a new offensive. And we have the answer today, where according to Raiba, they say that the Russian forces has captured Enerhodar, which is actually the most northwestern town in the Kharkiv Front. So this capture actually put significant pressure on the Ukrainian defenders over here at Zaporizhzhia, because Zaporizhzhia is now currently a stronghold of the Ukrainians, and the capture of Udi and Odnohorivka may mean that these troops here might get encircled should the troops at Odnohorivka capture Borshchova, and the troops at Udi actually move westward and then linked up with this force over here on the western side. So if they are able to link up, this might actually close the encirclement and causing Zaporizhzhia to be entirely cut off from the main Ukrainian troops. So this is actually a very concerning situation for the Ukrainian side. But we will see. On Twitter, a pro-Ukrainian reporter mentioned that Udi is actually fake. They say this is fake information. They say the Russians never captured Udi. So just want to give her the benefit of the doubt. I actually helped to report what she said. So but I'm not going to advertise who she is. You can actually go to the Twitter to go and look for it. Because her last report was 4 days ago, and this capture was like 5 days ago and then the capture was reported like 2 days ago or 1 day ago. And it's like after her report, the Russians attacked and conquered. That is perfectly reasonable as well. So, but I just want to give the benefit of the doubt. So who knows? Maybe Woody is actually not captured. Maybe that's a fake news. Maybe the Russians just want to massage their ego. Who knows? There's fighting reported at Pitomnik on the 14th of August. I probably have already reported this in the previous summary. And that's all from the Kharkiv Front. So that's all from the entire summary. So this is the summary of the day of 172 to 173, 14 to 15 of August. I hope you guys will subscribe to the channel. Please press the like button. And I will continue to cover the Ukraine war as long as you guys will support and continue to watch. So do share this to your contacts who are interested, and I will see you in the next update.